Okay, so today we're really diving deep. We're going to pull apart some fascinating stories and look at the ideas behind them, see what makes them tick and what we can learn from them.
Sounds good.
In today's deep dive, well, we're going to be exploring the ancient epic, the Mahabharata.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but specifically we're going to be looking at the tale of Aklavya.
All right. So this isn't just some dusty old story, though, is it? This is actually something that we can, relate to today.
Exactly. It's packed with insights that are surprisingly relevant to the way we learn, the way we dedicate ourselves to our goals, and even the way we navigate this whole crazy world of education.
I like it. All right.
So to help us unpack all this, we've got some really interesting sources.
Okay.
We have some excerpts from a podcast intro and a really thoughtful blog post.
Okay.
Both of them take a deep look at Aklavya's journey, the core lessons that we can learn from it, how they resonate even today, thousands of years later.
Sure.
And also the role of online learning and how all of this kind of ties into that.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we even have some personal reflections on what it all means, so it gets quite deep.
Yeah.
But our mission for this deep dive is to really get under the skin of Aklavya's story.
Okay.
We want to see how it can shine a light on self-learning, the power of focus, and this constantly shifting landscape of how we learn and gain knowledge.
All right. Sounds good.
So let's jump right in. Can you tell us a bit more about who Aklavya actually was and what made his story so compelling?
Sure. So Aklavya was a young man, a warrior, and he had this burning ambition, this huge desire to master archery.
Okay.
So in the epic, he went in search of Dronacharya, who, was this legendary teacher of the Kuru princes, and he asked to become his student.
So he went straight to the top, basically, this amazing teacher.
Yeah, he did. He really wanted to learn from the best.
And what happened? Did Dronacharya just accept him as a student?
Well, no, he actually declined his request for formal training.
Oh, wow. He turned him away.
He did.
So what did Aklavya do? Did he just kind of give up on his dream of mastering archery?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. This is actually where the really compelling part of his story comes in. You see, Aklavya, he wasn't deterred by this rejection.
Right.
He retreated to the forest, and this is where it gets interesting. He created a statue of Dronacharya, and viewing it as his guru, basically his teacher in a symbolic way, he began to practice archery.
So he kind of created his own learning environment in a way.
Yeah.
He had this intense dedication to this goal, even though he was rejected.
Right.
That's pretty incredible. And I'm guessing all this effort actually paid off.
It did. Through sheer perseverance and self-discipline, Aklavya became an incredibly skilled archer.
So all on his own, he essentially mastered this skill.
Absolutely.
Wow.
He became so good, in fact, that even Dronacharya couldn't ignore his talent anymore. And this is where things get a little bit complicated. You see, Dronacharya had made a promise to his prize student Arjuna that he would become the greatest archer in the world.
Ah, I see. So Aklavya, who was self-taught, was now potentially rivaling Dronacharya's star pupil. This is where the whole idea of Guru Dakshina comes in, right?
Yes, exactly.
Now, for those who might not be familiar with this concept, can you explain what it is and how it plays into Aklavya's story?
Sure. So Guru Dakshina is essentially a traditional offering that a student would give to their teacher as a way of showing respect and gratitude when they finish their studies. It's like a way of acknowledging the teacher's contribution to their development.
Like a final gift.
Exactly. And so when Dronacharya saw just how skilled Aklavya had become, and he realized that he had learned by treating him, Dronacharya, as his guru, even without direct teaching,
Right.
well, he felt he had to ask for his Guru Dakshina.
And what did he ask for? I'm guessing it wasn't something simple.
No, it wasn't. Dronacharya, in order to stay true to his promise to Arjuna, asked Aklavya for something huge. He asked for his right thumb.
His thumb. Wow.
Yeah, and for an archer, the thumb is absolutely essential. I mean, losing it would drastically affect his ability to shoot.
It's a huge sacrifice to ask for.
Yeah.
So how did Aklavya respond to this?
Well, and this is what I find so powerful about this story. The sources all emphasize Aklavya's deep respect for Dronacharya, and without any hesitation, he agreed.
Wow. He just gave up his thumb, just like that.
He did. He willingly sacrificed his thumb. It was a display of incredible devotion to his perceived guru, and it really showed the depth of his commitment to learning and archery.
So looking at this story, what are some of the key lessons about learning that we can take away from it? What really stands out to you?
Well, I think there are several really powerful insights here. First, and this one is pretty obvious, is the principle of learning by doing. Aklavia didn't wait for formal permission or instruction to start learning. He knew what he wanted. He wanted to master archery.
Right.
And so he took initiative and started practicing with whatever resources he had.
And that's something that really resonates today, right?
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. With all the online resources available to us now, YouTube, online courses, the ability to learn anything you want is right at your fingertips.
It's incredible when you think about it.
It is. And it really makes you think about the way we approach learning. Do we need someone to give us permission to start learning? Or can we take Aklavia's example and just dive in?
That's a great point. It really empowers you as a learner.
It does, yeah. And it makes you think about what Aklavia might have gained through that self-discovery that maybe a structured lesson wouldn't have given him.
It's like finding your own path. It's pretty amazing.
Right. And another key takeaway, which is so relevant in today's world of constant distractions, is Aklavia's dedication and focus. I mean, think about it. He was practicing archery in the forest with no one watching him, no one to motivate him, just him and his goal.
And we all struggle with focus today,
Right.
right? I mean, we have notifications popping up on our phones, social media vying for our attention. It's constant.
It is. And that's why Aklavia's story is so powerful. It's a reminder that in order to achieve anything meaningful, whether it's mastering a skill or learning a new language or whatever it is you're passionate about, you need to be able to tune out the noise and focus.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting, even the source material we're looking at points to some modern day tools that can help us cultivate that focus. Things like digital diaries, goal setting apps. They might be modern, but they're helping us achieve that same kind of focused intention that Aklavia had.
So the tools might change, but the principle of focus is always going to be essential.
It is, yeah.
Then there's also the complex aspect of respect for teachers and mentors.
Yes, which is interesting in Aklavia's case because Dronacharya actually never taught him directly.
Right, he was self-taught, but he still considered Dronacharya his guru.
Exactly, and that's a crucial point. Even though he was denied formal instruction, he still held Dronacharya in the highest regard.
So it wasn't about formal titles.
Not at all. And I think this highlights that the value of mentorship and guidance goes beyond a traditional student-teacher relationship. Today, it could be about learning from authors you admire, online courses taught by experts, or even just seeking advice from more experienced people in your field. The point is, the wisdom and influence of others can be invaluable.
That makes a lot of sense.
And finally, there's the concept of sacrifice in learning. Now, Aklavia's sacrifice was obviously pretty extreme.
To say the least.
Yeah, but how can we relate that to our own learning experiences?
Well, I mean, I think the source material makes a good point that learning, even if it's not as dramatic as giving up a thumb, often requires us to make sacrifices.
Sure.
It could be about dedicating time to study instead of going out with friends.
Yeah.
It could be investing money in courses. Or maybe it's simply choosing to disconnect from distractions so you can really focus on learning something new.
Yeah, I like that.
Whatever the sacrifice is, it shows your commitment to learning and growing.
Right.
So, considering all these lessons, how do you think Aklavia's story contributes to the whole debate around traditional schooling versus more self-directed learning, like unschooling, for example?
That's a really interesting question. I think Aklavia's journey, in a way, embodies the spirit of self-directed learning. You have traditional schooling, which provides a structured environment, a set curriculum. It gives you opportunities to interact with your peers, develop social skills, teamwork.
Right.
But sometimes it can feel a bit rigid. It might not always cater to individual passions or learning styles.
Sure.
And then you have approaches like unschooling.
Where it's all about self-directed learning, following your curiosity, right?
Exactly. And that mirrors Aklavia's own initiative and motivation. You're in charge of your own learning.
But the sources also mention some potential downsides to unschooling, right?
They did, yeah. They mentioned things like potential gaps in knowledge because it's less structured. And I think what Aklavia's story shows us is that learning doesn't necessarily have to be confined to one specific method.
So it's not just black and white, traditional versus self-directed.
Exactly. Aklavia achieved so much through self-study, it shows us the power of intrinsic motivation and dedication. But at the same time, I think we can all benefit from some level of structure and guidance.
So maybe it's about finding the right balance.
I think so. It's about leveraging the benefits of both approaches and creating a learning experience that really works for you.
Makes sense. Now, these days, so much learning happens online. What perspective do the sources offer on the role of these platforms and the people creating the content?
Well, it's undeniable that we have this unbelievable access to learning resources now, thanks to platforms like YouTube, various online courses, even AI-driven learning tools.
Right. It's amazing, really.
It is, but it also raises some important questions.
Like, how do we know what's accurate? How do we know what's actually valuable?
Exactly. The sources caution us that not all content creators are created equal. Some prioritize getting more views and clicks over providing accurate and genuinely valuable information. So we have to be careful.
So we need to be really critical of what we're consuming online.
Absolutely. And it's up to us as learners to seek out content from credible sources. Look for depth, expertise, and a genuine commitment to education. Don't just be swayed by popularity.
That's a really important point. Now, one of the sources also included a personal reflection from the author.
It did, yeah.
Can you tell us about that and how it connects to what we've been talking about?
Sure. The author was talking about a lesson they learned from their father about resilience. He used the example of learning to ride a bicycle.
Oh, wicked.
And his advice was simple. If you fall, get back up.
Dust yourself off.
Exactly. Take care of your wounds and then keep trying.
It's about not giving up.
It is, and it's about learning through experience and persevering even when things get tough.
And how does that connect to Clavia's story?
Well, the author was making a connection between this idea of resilience and the broader theme of learning.
Okay.
You see, Clavia faced a major setback when he was denied formal instruction, but he didn't let that stop him.
Right. He found his own way.
Exactly, and I think this also ties back to the importance of being discerning about what we consume online. Just like you might get a few scrapes and bruises learning to ride a bike, you might encounter some unreliable information online.
So we need to develop those critical thinking skills to figure out what's good information and what's not.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what would you say is the biggest takeaway from Clavia's story?
I think it's the fact that learning is not just about formal education or getting a degree. It's about the drive you have within, the dedication you bring to your goals, the resourcefulness you use to find ways to learn, and the resilience you show when you face obstacles.
And I think that's a really relevant point for today, especially with so much information available to us. It's not just about having access to knowledge. It's about what you choose to do with it.
I completely agree. And as the blog post asks, how do you use your knowledge and skills for the betterment of the world? And what impact do you hope to make?
That's a powerful question to consider.
It is.
So we encourage you to think about your own learning journey, your own goals, and how you can use your skills and knowledge, not just for your own benefit, but to make a positive impact on the world.
I like that.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a fascinating exploration.
It has.
We'll see you next time.
Sounds good.